Confessional podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Lowries, and the Good Girl Confessional podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40, Women Beyond 40, a platform for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond who want to share and learn about hard-won wisdom. You can join us over at WB40.com. Before we begin today's podcast, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast is recorded. And in my case, it's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations. And I would like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and pay homage to their ancient culture of storytelling. Today in the podcast, I am blown away by our special guest. She's so incredible. I feel like there is nothing that she can't do if she puts her mind to it. My incredible guest is Shantelle Thompson. If you haven't heard of her, you really should. Shantelle is a proud Barkindji, Ngiyampaa First Nations Woman. She is a 3-time world champion in Jiu-Jitsu. She is the mother of 6 and she is running a business. So she's a businesswoman as well. And her business is all about helping women to thrive, or girls to thrive, which is so amazing. Everything about her is passionate and incredible, and I was a fan before I met her, but having met her now, I'm definitely a bigger fan. Please welcome to the confessional the extremely wonderful Shantelle Thompson. Hello, Shantelle. Welcome to the Good Girl Confessional. How are you today?
Hi, Sandy. I'm really good and really excited to be here.
Me too, because I've got to say, no one else will know this, but I'm going to let everyone know. We've probably talked for a good 40 minutes or something before we've even hit record. Amazing conversation. And I finally had to say, wait, I better hit record because there's all this gold. You're amazing. I was sitting here so enthralled by all of your wisdom that I was like, oh, I forgot to hit record. So I know we're in for a good podcast today. I'm so thrilled to finally meet you. I think I'm just so blown away, and I said this to you earlier. I don't know how you achieve all the things that you achieve, because it's a lot. And when we think about it, and we'll go into all of these different aspects of your life, a 3-time world champion, which is extraordinary, an Order of Australia, NAIDOC Sportswoman of the Year in 2019, Sportsperson of the Year. You're a business owner and you're a mum of 6. And I'm so grateful for your time right now, by the way, because I also know this is the last day of your family holiday, so I feel a bit guilty. So thanks for joining me today. But that's you, and I love this. So you do so much, but you don't like to use the word balance. So let's start there.
So I'd like to begin by acknowledging and paying my respects to the country that I'm on, which is Barkindji country on the central coast of New South Wales, and pay my respects to this community's elders, both past and present, and acknowledge them for their continuing custodianship of country, of culture and community, because I feel welcomed in this beautiful space. And Australia has, the landscape that we now call Australia has so much beauty and depth to it, and it's because of the determination and the strength, the courage, the warrior heart, the resilience of our ancestors and our elders that we are still here, that someone like me who is so fair-skinned can be so strongly connected to her First Nations heritages and use that strength and where it's available to me, go back and try and pull together the pieces and the threads that are available to me to learn my culture and my heritage and pass that on. It's because of those who have come before us. And we're a matriarchal culture as well. So I have that blueprint for how to be a powerful female in a current world that was set up to make sure that we didn't feel powerful or that we're fighting against all these status quos. That's my norm. My being matriarchal and powerful is the normal blueprint that's available to me. And I also acknowledge my elders, both past and present, from Barkindji and Ngiyampaa country, and just thank those who have come before me that allow me to be me. And I also acknowledge our emerging elders, because they are the reason I do what I do. They're the reason I have the courage to show up and continue to try and figure things out, because I want to ensure that I play my role and do my part to further the path for them to follow, so that when it's their turn to step up, they've already got the tools and the resources they need to start their journey off strong, to go into and to lay those foundations for generations to come. And I think for me, it's, I trust now, particularly in being in business and being in more corporate or professional roles in spaces that I didn't grow up in, I haven't been conditioned to these spaces, is when something doesn't land with me and I get a physical, visceral response to it, a physiological response to it, even if I can't articulate at the time why it doesn't work for me, I've learned now to trust and just go, hey, that doesn't work for me, or it doesn't land. It's like in business, you have to have your niche market or your client avatar. I'm like, that doesn't work for me, because I don't know anyone that could put together a client avatar that would be exactly like me. However, the energy that I bring, the determination, the heart sort of stuff, that's there. So for me, I picked up weaving in 2020, and I didn't grow up learning my culture. I grew up on country, I grew up in community, and I grew up always being Aboriginal, but I didn't grow up learning a lot of my culture. I got exposure and experiences to bits and pieces. So I'm now trying to learn as much as I can that's available to me of the parts that land for me, so I can then pass that on to my children, so that they're not having to play catch up later on. Weaving was something that I picked up in 2020 and was taught to me by Tegan Murdoch, who is known as Ngiyampaa Weaving, and she's a Barkindji woman. She's a cousin of mine. And we were talking about the principles of weaving. And in order to create a weaving piece, you need to start with a coil, or the core of the weaving. And you're intentional about which strands of raffia or whatever you use for your weaving to pick up and to bind together, and then you pick another strand that you're going to use to weave and create the coil and to start your pieces. And for me, it was like, well, I've always been weaving my whole life. I've never been one thing. I'm the third eldest of 18 siblings. I'm an Aboriginal woman, a First Nations woman with fair skin. I was raised by my father, who's non-Indigenous, whilst being raised in my community because my father supported that. So there's always so many things that I've always been, and I grew up being told I was either too much or not enough, not smart enough, not pretty enough, not sporty enough, or I wanted too much. I was too loud, too ambitious. So from a really young age, I had to go, fuck it, I'm going to walk my own path. And for whatever reason, I have been gifted this ability to listen to my own heart and to be able to see beyond the current moment, that there was more for me, or to have a bigger vision for myself that would lead me and give me the courage to guide me out of whatever current situation I was in, whether it was when I was 15 and told by two different teachers at the same in the same time frame. One teacher told me I was more likely to end up dead or pregnant than I was to finish school because statistics were against me, and that my brothers were more likely to end up as perpetrators of family violence. Now, I know that that was because she was intimidated by whatever the power or the passion, the energy that I had, for this grown woman to feel, who was in a position of leadership and supposed to be nurturing my potential, to feel comfortable or propelled to say something like that. And then I had another teacher a few months later say to me that I had so much potential, but I had my head stuck so far up my own ass that I was the cause of a lot of my own problems. Now, this teacher had been trying to help me for months, but I wasn't open to that. And I don't think she realised, though, the seeds that she had planted inside of me that would take root when I needed them. And that happened when those words took root inside of me when I found out I was pregnant with my first daughter. So for me, weaving makes so much more sense because I weave together the role of being a mother, of being a First Nations woman and wanting to have a voice in the world that empowers my community to remember who we are beyond the trauma, beyond colonization, to remember the 80,000 years, the unbroken connection that we have to this country, to our culture and to the landscape. And also to challenge the narratives that are held about my culture and about my community by others that are often more of a deficit rather than a strength base, to go, First Nations cultures around the world have solutions to current first world problems. We don't need new solutions. We just need to have the courage to look to ancient solutions and be innovative with how we bring those solutions to the current problems, without cultural appropriation and with acknowledging and doing the right thing to bring those solutions into our current situation. So for me, weaving, and I call myself a dream walker, life weaver, and it's because I've always been led by my dreams. It's been my dreams that have allowed me to take the steps that I've needed, and weaving things together. But the heart, the coil of everything for me is the warrior heart, which is to stand in your power, be your truth, and follow your heart. And it's my children who have always, even before they came into my womb, that have always called to me to be the better version of myself and have the courage to follow my ancestral calling, because the more I become, the more they become.
Yeah, wow. And that's really, it's so powerful you talking about, and I'm a huge believer in this, that as children, especially young adolescents, that the people around us, the supposed role models, can make or break a human being, right? And I was very lucky to have a couple of amazing teachers where, as you say, they planted seeds. And I'm sure I was at times really bloody challenging, I must say. I was always questioning everything, talking back. But I do think they planted seeds as well, that you could do this, you have the capability to be something, and but you're stopping yourself. And that really resonated with me when you said that, because I was told that as well. I'm really sorry though for the negative teachers that bought into stereotyping and bullshit, but boy did you prove them wrong. And I hope particularly that those teachers are looking where you are now and thinking, well, I got that so wrong. I think you're so extraordinary. And I think, as you say, like, you are learning all the time still about your culture and embracing it and taking that on board. And we were talking about a lot about that earlier, about not following our intuition. And for you, like, you've got 2 podcasts, both are pretty amazing. One, I honestly, and I listened to both, and I was just telling you, I was listening to one of them yesterday while I was walking, and you have all these beautiful little pearls of wisdom that really resonated with me. But one of your podcasts is Warrior Heart Yarns with Aunty Sham, which I just love. And the other one, of course, is your journey to Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Now, what's fascinating to me is you've got this journey to the black belt, but in actual fact, you've got 3 world championships under your belt already, which is phenomenal. So tell me about, God, there's so much to talk about here. Tell me about what led you, because you said, someone said to you, you weren't sporty enough and you weren't whatever. And then you end up a 3 times world champion and you're still training now, which is incredible. How did you get into that? Like, what led you down that path, and how did you find, say, Jiu-Jitsu? What was it about that particular sport that really resonated with you?
So I grew up fighting. I've been fighting from day one, and it's, for me, I look back and I take who I am being very seriously in this current chapter, because my mum, through choices but also through society, could not be herself. She grew up, and I think that she was told at a young age to tell people she was Indian rather than Aboriginal, because of, my mum was born before she was even a citizen of this country. She was born before the 67 referendum and things like that. And looking back at my mum's story, my grandmother's story on my Aboriginal side. So my mum is Barkindji, Ngiyampaa and my father is white Australian with Irish, Scottish
Hello,
heritage.
Sandy here from the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40, a platform for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to see the rest of the video, please head over to WB40.com and subscribe to WB40 Extra. By subscribing to WB40 Extra, you're helping to support the hard-won wisdom of incredible women. So thank you. Please remember to like, share and follow.